Hey, what's going on, YouTube friends? Well, today I got a good one for us. We are going to work on this beautiful 1994 RayCraft bass boat, and this thing is immaculate, well taken care of. 85 Yamaha, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through the carburetors. We're going to change the jets in it, put some Carson Sport Marine reeds in it, and that's going to be it for this guy. I'm gonna wake it up a little bit. All right, well, let's get started. All right, so I'm not gonna bore you with a bunch of video. I'm just gonna show you what we're gonna do. We're gonna take this air intake off, and you have three carburetors. You have a top, middle, and a bottom. If you're not familiar with these, take note. These do have to go in certain order. There's a top, there's a bottom. Excuse me, bottom in the middle. Make note of that. What we gotta do is these little 10mm nuts right back here, there, and there. We'll take those off all the way down, disconnect our linkages, our choke, and our fuel lines on the other side, and that's going to get our carburetors off. So let's go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you the next step. We'll take our throttle linkages off. I take some needle-lows, push on them just like that, and set him to the side. And on our choke cable, there's an E-clip right here we need to take off. There he goes. Now you can take your choke and move him out of the way. The next thing we'll do is we'll start taking our 10mm bolts off here to get the carburetor. We'll take the 10mm bolts off here, here, and here, and disconnect our fuel lines. Just be careful not to drop none of this hardware, it's really small. And move him out of the way. And with all your hardware taken off, your two screw bolts on both sides, you can come in here and remove your carburetor. And be careful that you can try to save these gaskets. Set these to the side. And this one has the manual choke on the bottom. You need to disconnect that to pull it off. And that's all there is to that. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take out the reed chamber plate here. All these bolts. And we also have a linkage here we gotta take loose. Move him out of the way, set him aside. All right. That's all there is to it. Now here's our reeds. Okay. They all look good. None are bent, none are lifted. But this is what we're gonna go after and change. All right, so now we got the carburetors off. What I've done is I've drained them to the proper dispensary. And we're gonna go out to the pilot jet here. Not the main jet. This is for top end, this is your low end. And use a good screwdriver with a flat blade. I already got the jet out. Push down real hard because sometimes these things are very soft and brittle and they can break. Here's the new jet right here in the bags, Yamaha part. These only Yamaha parts only. I don't buy the aftermarket junk. So I'm gonna just take this out of the bag, guys, and put it in here. I'm gonna put the stopper back in and do that with all 3 carburetors. So that's all there is going to be to the carburetors. Now, these carburetors are clean. I went through them about a month ago, so I already did their cleaning and put new kits in them, so they're good. We're just changing the low end jet on it. All right, so I've taken the reed box off and I've already taken the top one. So what we have is this is our Carson reeds. If you watch, there's a notch here that goes on this side, and you need to have a torque wrench set at 2.8 newton meters for these little screws. Also, I put blue Loctite back on them just so they won't come loose. Little blue Loctite. And I start with the center one. Drop them. You may not be able to see it, but my torque wrench will let loose at 2.8 newton meters. I'll get them started, run them almost all the way down. Till it stops, and then I'll go for the torque. That's it when it's clicking. Now I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of video. I'm going to take the rest of all this apart, put my new gaskets on, which I have, and change all the reeds out. One thing you want to make sure is when you torque that these aren't lifted off. Your reeds are laying flat. If they're lifted off, that'll be an air leak. So that's all there is to it. It's very important you get a torque wrench, screwdriver type, to set these with. Now I'm going to do all the rest of these, and we'll put them back on the motor. I ain't gonna make a bunch of videos showing you that, but that's about what all it takes. If you notice, there's a notch right here on this reed plate, and there's a notch in your factory reed that should match that also when you put it back together. Okay, same with your new reed. Things to look for on your rubbers: make sure there's nothing cut, no nicks, no rubber's not pilling up nowhere. If all that looks good, then we'll put our new reed in. The cleanliness is a good thing here, guys. So here's our groove. We'll lay it down right over the holes. Okay, and we'll take and put a dab of blue Loctite on our screws, like so. Okay, take our retainer plate, put the middle screw in, start him till it somewhat bottoms out. Get your next screw, put him in place, run him in. Now be very careful when you put these screws in that you don't cross thread these guys, because they do cross thread very easy. So pay attention to that when you're putting these in. Okay, so now that I got them run down, I'm gonna start right here in the middle. I'm gonna work out on torquing. That's one. That's two. There's three. We'll check it one more time. 1, 2, and 3. All right, so now that those are torqued, make sure they're not lifted off the face. If they are, they're too tight. But these are not lifted, they're laying down on the rubber like they should. So now we're going to do the back side, same way we did the front ones. We'll put some Loctite on our screws. This is blue Loctite. Okay. Make sure our notch lines up. Now we're going to torque. Start in the middle. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. All right, so not lifted, looks good. Everything's torqued down. No trash. We'll set him to the side. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull these old gaskets off here. Okay. Just like so. You have a gasket on the front and the back of this plate here. You need to replace both of them. This gasket here also. All right, so we're going to clean all this up. We're going to set our new gaskets, and then we'll put our recages back down, and I'll show you that. All right, so we got our intake all cleaned up. One thing I like to do, use a little moly grease around the sealing areas. And what that is for is to make sure we don't have no air leaks right in this area. You don't want any air leaks to be in here because it'll cause performance problems. All right, so we got the little bit of lube on there. It's just a little moly grease is all it is. We'll lay our gasket down. Make sure our bolt holes all line up. Same thing here, just spread a little bit of grease on here, a little moly lube all around your areas that's going to be sealing. Again, this is to control air leaks. It's good and clean. Bolt holes all line up. All right, and then put our, smear a little lube on. Take our gasket. Check your bolt holes. Okay, so we'll put our top rechamber back right here. These are screws that go in. And these can only go one way, they point downwardly. So I'm just gonna hand tight these for the time being, and there's a torque spec on here. Same thing, just to control air leaks, to rule that out. A small air leak will make these engines run miserable, make them run lean, make them run where they can burn up. All right, so that's done. Make sure it slopes down. If you put these on upside down, if you put this away and you try to put it back in the motor, it wouldn't go in. The intake on the motor would not accept it. So you'd have to turn them downwardly. Just like in reverse order, we're gonna put the reed cage assembly all back in. Put a little assembly grease on here. And this again, guys, is just to control air leaks. Some of you may say, what are you doing? Well, after years of working on these things and you get an air leak, this is an old school trick. Inside this motor looks really good. All right, all our reeds look good. Everything's torqued down. We'll stick them back in place. There we go. Take our top 2 bolts. Put those guys in. And we'll put the middle ones in. All right, so we got our reed chamber cover back on. The next thing we're gonna do is start putting our carburetors back on. Now I did put new gaskets and I did put lube on them, and we're ready to go. Our lock washer and our 10mm nut. Okay, so I'm gonna put all the carburetors back on and I'll show you the linkages, and we should be pretty close to being done with this guy. We'll put it on the hose and take it for a run real quick when we get done. So let me put all the carburetors back on, and then we'll take it outside and crank it up. All right, so we have our carburetors mounted back on. We've got our choke linkages mounted, our solenoids hooked back up. Then we had an E-clip that went right here. Put that guy back on. All looks good. So the next thing is we're gonna put our throttle retainers on. And there goes one way. You see that right there? How it's closed. See how it's open? You can't put this on that away. It won't go. It has to face outwardly towards you. So all I do is snap the bottom one, snap it on the middle, snap it on the top. And that'll run all your carburetors in control with each other. All right, guys, so all looks good. Let's put our air box back on, and then we'll take it outside and put it on the water hose and prime the carburetors back up with fuel and start her up, see how she sounds. Okay, so we have an old gasket here that's torn that goes in here, so it's pretty typical. Somebody tried to make a repair with some Teflon or something, but whatnot. We got a new gasket. All right, we'll put our air box cover back on, and then we'll go put our fuel lines back on. Okay, let's go put our fuel lines on. All right, so we got our fuel lines back in place. Top zone, the retainers, the bottom. Okay, all looks good. We can plug our fuel hose back in. Okay, and we'll prime them up and look for leaks. Let's get this guy So let's pull them outside and let's put them on the water hose and see how she does. All right, let's give them a cold start after the reed change and low end jet change. Let's see how it runs. I will say that it does idle a lot better with the Carson reeds in it. Next thing we're gonna do is gonna put it in the water and take it for a run. And we'll get some video of that and see how better it runs. Yeah, it's doing a flyby with the new reeds and carburetor work. Old RayCraft's running good. Running real good. Hooked up running around right at 61 on GPS.
Hey YouTube friends, it's Candace back in the shop, sitting here with the RayCraft today. I had a modification that we have done to it. We added some Carson sport reeds, and the goal, what we're trying to do, is get back up to 6,000 RPMs roundabout after we repitch this prop. We had plans to do this, and what we found, the benefits, it idled a lot better, ran better, got our RPMs back up, and we are happy at this point. We took it out to the Trinity River, ran great. Trent took some video. With him out of the boat, it is a little sports machine. It's a good time on the water. It's quick, it's peppy. We're very, very happy. Maybe possibly one more little modification, and I think we need to repitch the prop by one to get closer. We're almost up to 6,000, so maybe when we make that modification, we can make another video.
Yeah. So we originally had this boat, it had a 18 on it, I believe, on the pitch, 3 blades, stainless steel. We took it up to a 20. We noticed with the 18 on there, it was running like 6,500 RPMs, and we were running like 57, 58. So we put 2 more pitch in it, and that knocked our RPMs down to about 54. So we went ahead and put in the Carson sport reeds, and that got us back up to around 58, 59. And definitely idles a lot better. It doesn't shake, and man, I tell you, the acceleration is very, very smooth with that setup. So we're got a little bit more to come on this motor. Maybe do a little head change and make a little more modifications on the timing system. But anyhow, the reeds were very well worth their money. Easy to install. If you watch the video, you'll see it. And please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.